All right, so hello and welcome. I'm very happy to be here with you today and to present one of our, I would say, topics which we are very passionate about, especially myself, because we've did a similar stuff back in 2020, and it was a huge success worldwide with a lot of partners reporting back and asking more and more questions. And we are doing also active steps into make it more, I would say, engaging for the users. But also we've already did few things, changed the licensing, made things available for the partners. So I'm definitely going to cover that more. But before we will actually get there, then we'll cover what the cybersecurity audit as a service actually is, why it is successful, why people are using it, why partners are making money with such an approach. Of course, my webinar will not be only covering cybersecurity audit as a service. We'll be covering also a few more things. And those are Langard for MSPs. I'll be also talking about the GFI Clearview and mentioning also GFI App Manager, which is our latest cloud platform. Right. So this is the agenda. So not only about, talking about things as audit, but also sharing some insights on the products. I will be very brief on the product. I will not go into deep technical details. Of course, if you would like to have the technical details, then I'm more than happy to answer any questions or go to I don't know, a different session, and we can go through the details or cover a demo on multiple things. So why cybersecurity audit as a service? So the need of this service, or the idea of this service, is basically lying in the current landscape, threat landscape, which I believe majority of us are aware. So the cybersecurity, we can say it's an arms race where the hackers are constantly trying to find new holes in your infrastructure, in your defense, and trying to use it. On the contrary, the good guys, the admins or the security officers, they are trying to find the same holes and try to fix them. Now, the whole situation is going to be different, I would say, every single day or every single week because of the AI, right? So the AI is number one tool for the cyber criminals, used for automation, used for actually trying to find new ways how to hack the systems. So if you use some of the AI tools like GPTs or Copilot or Gemini or Claude, which was actually released, I think, 2 days ago, the Claude 3, then I'm sure you know that those are great tools, but they could be also tweaked into sharing information which could be misused. So that's what's on this slide is actually making even more sense the more we go into the whole AI era, which have started roughly 1 or 2 years ago. So what really is the cybersecurity audit? The cybersecurity audit could be a product of an MSP partner, but under the hood, it's actually not a product, it's a process. It's a continuous process, or it could be a process which you're going to perform from time to time in your customer. And the result of this process is actually a complete information about the infrastructure, deployed software, devices used by the employees, data security, operational security, information, network security, system or physical security. At the end, the audit should have some sort of output, which is, I don't know, a form of a report, or it could be in the form of some sort of changes, etc., etc. In all of cases, the audit output should serve as an proof that the defense is adequate and the organization is meeting or is making step towards compliance. The compliance, as also Nebojša said in the beginning, such as the NIS2, is going to do a lot of shift and a lot of changes in the industry. The truth is, we don't know yet. We only can expect what will happen, but until really the countries of the European Union will apply the NIS2 regulation, then we don't know, right? We can only expect. But I'm going to cover this in a longer extent at the end of the presentation. So to summarize the audit, it also could be from a perspective that the first step to actually solving a problem is that you realize the problem really exists. And this is exactly what the audit is going to cover for you. There are multiple benefits of audit, so you can evaluate the data flow. So in this case, any data. It doesn't need to be like email. It doesn't need to be some sort of message or something which you are updating or uploading somewhere into the wild. It's really the data flow, even from the internal perspective. What happens, for example, with the PST files, right? So a lot of people are using PST files, which is a huge problem on its own because there is no monitoring for the PST files. The PST files can get broken. You don't know what data, what emails, what information is in the PST file. So the evaluation of the data flow is wider. It's not only to the external sources, but also between the internal sources in your organization. The next one is the vulnerability identification, then issue identification in case that something is not aligned, evaluation of internal or external processes. It's a cost-effective security approach because, as mentioned previously, you are actually realizing problem exists, you are addressing the problem, and from that perspective, you might not get hacked, right? So you can actually save the money. And the final one is the compliance. From my experience, many people who are, or many customers, organizations, or MSPs who are conducting these audits, they're actually taking the advantage of this whole situation to fix things. If the organization is ongoing, continuously working day to day, quarter to quarter, everyone is busy, and people just are not fixing the things entirely. They are, I would say, patching it or using hot patch to just fix it on the surface. Let's just keep the organization going. Let's keep working. But then the whole fix is not correct, right? It's just a temporary solution, and many times this exactly happens in many organizations. And during the audit, this is again recognized and correctly addressed. So this is also from my own experience what people are actually doing with it. When it comes to the audit itself, as mentioned previously, it's a process. For this process, you can use some tools to address the process, but also from a certain perspective, this process always will be manual. So there are always some tasks which you will have to actually do manually, like going into the firewall, checking certain settings on the firewall. You can evaluate firewall rules, that's for sure. We are developing a tool for it, but some other aspects are always going to be manual. So it's a process involving certain applications which you choose to have for that process, and also your expertise, your knowledge. And exactly that expertise and the knowledge, that's an added value, which in this case could be actually sold to the customer. Of course, it will be bundled under the audit service, cybersecurity audit service, but without your knowledge, without your expertise, it's not possible to deliver this, because you can't really do it if you have zero information about the process itself, if you have zero information about the cybersecurity and other stuff. That is not possible. So really, in this case, your added value is the knowledge which you have gained over the years. There are certain best practices, such as include employees in the audit process, gather as much information as possible, track audit results over the time, set clear timeline for mitigation and discovered issues, make results available for the internal users, conduct regular audits, review audit processes, update documentation, highlight discovered issues, and so on and so on. So this is a highlight of best practices, but eventually, when you're going to start the audit process on your own, then you can come up with your own best practices. In this case, I would like to highlight 3 of them. The first one is conduct regular audits. This is very, very important, but at the same time, people are resistant to it. The main reason why is the money. And I'll explain later on actually why I mean by this, but I wanted to highlight that this is something which we should probably keep in mind, and then come back to it at the later stages of my presentation. Now, 2 other things which I'd like to cherry pick in this slide is that include employees in the audit process. So many people, many organizations are taking it very sterile. So they say like, okay, we are doing audit. Only the experts are going to the audit because only they know. I agree with that, but the team of users or team of people, the experts who are going to actually conduct the audit should not be consisting of only the experts. I personally, and I've seen also a lot of companies doing this as well, they take other people to the whole team who is conducting the audit. And many times it's an internal employee, for example, from a reception, or it's a marketing personnel. It's someone who has absolutely zero understanding of the cybersecurity, has absolutely zero understanding of the internal processes or all other stuff. And that person should be definitely part of the team who is conducting the audit. He should work side to side to the cyber experts, cybersecurity experts. There is actually a lot of reason why this should happen. One is that they have no idea, but exactly that is the problem. They have no idea, so they will do something which you never think of. Like receptionists will tell you, okay, there is a person who is giving me a USB drive. I'm plugging the USB drive. I'm copying some files to some other departments, etc., etc. So this could be an easily a gateway to your infrastructure. You can have the firewall, you can have all the policies, but suddenly a small USB stick, which you are not even recognizing, is going to some computer which is perhaps not even managed, and the files from that USB sticks are going God knows where. Or another information from a marketing personnel who will tell you that he's sharing files through, I don't know, Facebook or from Messenger. So it could be a lot of information these guys can actually give you, which can help to strengthen up the entire cybersecurity and to actually perform a really good audit. And from the other perspective, since they are not professionals, they might have a total different look on what you are doing. Because the experts, the admins, the bad thing is that they are always going to look and always going to do the same thing, right? They're going to look on the firewall, they're going to check, okay, file rules are correct, this is correct, that is correct, it pass, right? But the other person who has no idea about the firewall will maybe have a look on and saying that, okay, why there is a bad logo, or who changed the logo in case that the white branding is possible, or will have a look on why some devices are connected when there should not be. So it's a different look, different pair of eyes. And another thing which I would like to highlight on this page is update the documentation. So this is for every organization, for everyone, this is very painful, right? No one takes joy in updating the documentation. And that's exactly why no one is actually doing it on a regular basis. So if you are in a larger organization, or you are working or performing some sort of services for a larger organization, then you know that the documentation has been created in the beginning, and many times it's not updated. So again, this audit should actually have the documentation update as a part of it. And eventually it can save a lot of time in the future in case that something gets broken, or you will be under a certain attack, or something. The documentation can lower the response time and eventually can save a lot of money. So an ultimate best practice when it comes to the cybersecurity audit as a service is the cybersecurity audit checklist. So this is an example of a checklist. I'm not saying that this is one which you should use. I'm saying that you should create your own one. You can, of course, copy paste some of the items if you want to, but the cybersecurity audit checklist should be tailored for every customer to whom you're actually delivering the service. Or if you are the customer and you're going to conduct the cybersecurity audit on your own for your own benefit, then you should also come with your own checklist. So this is here just for an inspiration. It's actually a live checklist. So this is being used by one of our partners in North America. And he's just defining the identity audit scope. He's reviewing and editing the internal policies, inspecting servers. He's assessing the backups, reinforcing the firewalls, identifying operating system present in the infrastructure, third-party applications present in infrastructure and which needs to be updated. He's performing penetration testing, and all this other stuff. So it's a complex thing. You're not going to be done in 1 hour or 2 hours. He's doing exactly for 1 week. So he's performing an audit for a company, one or multiple companies, but each company is 1 week until he's absolutely finished. He's using our tool, which is called the GFI Vanguard. And with GFI Vanguard, he's able to actually automate some of the items. As mentioned previously, cybersecurity audit is a process. It's not a product. I mean, it's not a product from a vendor. It could be your product as an MSP partner delivered to your customer. But from my view, or from the vendor's perspective, it's a process where certain products can help to automate things or to make things more granular. But at the end, there always need to be some sort of groundwork which will be done by you, by MSPs, or by administrators from individual companies. Now, as I mentioned through the checklist, I mentioned that it should be a regular process. But why a service? Why this makes sense to be a service? And that exactly is coming from the regular part. The cybersecurity audit is in most cases conducted in this current landscape by a larger companies. The larger companies which have money, which have teams, which have people, which have products, all these things. But with adoption and implementation of NIS2 or other regulations which will again hit the European Union sooner or later, the audit or the extra cybersecurity would make even more sense for the SMB companies. But the issue with the SMB companies is that they don't have the budget. So for the regular audit perspective, the SMB company will not have enough money to purchase an annual license or to pay the MSP or to pay for the service for the long period of time. Many times that's the case. They don't want to pay because they don't see the benefit. And secondly, they don't mind to have the budget at all. And the budget is a problem in the SMB sector. So it's low. And because of its low, then the hackers, they can expect what kind of defensive mechanisms the SMB company will have. And this is one of the questions I'm giving every time I'm giving this presentation. I'm always asking the audience, like, what cybersecurity products your customers or you as an SMB company have. I did ask this question in Prague. I did ask this question in Mumbai. I asked it in Abu Dhabi, in February in Miami at the MSP Expo. I'm always asking the question, and the answer is always the same. It's regardless if you go from one side of the world to another, the MSP partners or the partners are always telling my SMB customer has an anti-spam, he has an endpoint antivirus, and he has a firewall. That's it. End of the line, nothing else. And even that is if we are lucky. Sometimes they don't even want to invest in the endpoint antivirus, etc., etc. So what I'm trying to say over here is that SMBs have an expected defensive mechanism, and if we know about it, everyone else knows about it. And this makes a little bit easier for the attackers to actually get in and to hack the system because they know what defensive mechanisms are there. Of course, the brands could be different, but once you pass the firewall, then there is only an antivirus which is waiting for you, right? So that's my point. From the other perspective, it's a simple infrastructure, right? So many times there is no segmentations, no VLANs, no complex routing, no defensive mechanisms at every subnet, etc., etc. So once the attackers are in, they can just go wild. The SMB companies, they have small to no IT security team, and of course they are part of the supply chain, so they can actually not be the main target, but they could be the bait, or they could be the actually just the door in to much larger corporation which has more money. And so from the other perspective, since the SMBs are so vulnerable, they're also number one when it comes to number of attacks conducted. The reason why is that exactly they are low defenses. So if you're a hacker, then you have a logical choice. Do you want to learn new stuff? Do you want to spend 1 month of trying to probe a larger corporation to actually get in and then ask for a ransom? Or you can do an easy work, let's say in a couple of hours, get inside of an SMB company and again ask for the ransom, right? So instead of hacking one huge company, you can hack multiple smaller companies. Of course, the hacker will not charge them 1 million of bucks because they don't have it. So he can charge smaller amount, let's say $100 or $300. So an amount which is basically equal to the time investment that the hackers are making to hack the company. And at the same time that they know that the company will pay, right? Many times the downtime in a small company is more expensive from the terms of money than a downtime in a larger company because they have backups, right? They have backups, they have contingency plans, they have all these things, so they are better prepared, and eventually the downtime will be smaller for them and not causing any termination of the business as for the SMB. So the SMBs are many times more reluctant to pay the ransom and stay quiet about it, which is a topic on its own, that people are just not saying that, hey, I have been hacked. This is the way how I was hacked. Please be careful. They're not admitting that. They're not even admitting that they paid the ransom. And it is happening. So, and with AI, this is just the threat landscape is just getting larger because you have more people who have malicious intention. Previously, they didn't have any skill in hacking anyone, but now suddenly they have an AI expert which can help them. And the attacks doesn't need to be, the attacks doesn't need to be sophisticated. It could be a very dumb attack, like simple, but still there are multiple people falling for it. A very good example is an email chain. I believe that you at some point received that email, and it was always an African country, and always some sort of prince or princess or someone who has a lot of money, and that someone is just out of the blue writing you an email telling you that, hey, if you're gonna send me $1,000 cash so I can get out from the country, I don't know, Nigeria or Sudan, then I'm going to pay you 1 million or $2 million because you're my relative, or I'm an African princess or king or whatsoever. So this phishing email is as old as I am, right? Or even maybe older, I don't know. But it sounds ridiculous. It sounds that no one will fall for that email at all. But the truth is, that email is still making more than 1 million a year. So there is always an audience for every single scam. There is always an audience which will digest that phishing, which will digest that attack. And what I'm trying to say with the AI is that we are just increasing suddenly the amount of people who are able to actually do something, to actually send some sort of attack. But I went a little bit off of the topic, so I do apologize for that. Let's now drill down into GFI Vanguard features. So as I mentioned, the cybersecurity audit is a process. You can use the products to automate certain aspects, and GFI Vanguard is exactly that product which helps with automation. It's able to assess automatically vulnerabilities. It's able to deploy patches automatically. It's able to perform device identification, what operating system, what hardware components, all this other stuff. It's able to perform software and hardware audit, meaning that it tells you what's the version of software, what's the deployed software, what's the category, what's the missing patch, for example, for the software, what is the serial number, and these other stuff. So it has a very powerful feature set covering a lot of aspects, and exactly those aspects could be used by the auditor or the auditing team performing cybersecurity audit. Now, on this slide, I'm going to just show you a flavor how much information Vanguard is actually able to gather. So it's a lot of information coming from the categorization of operating system, going to the audit policies, present shares, disk encryption, serial numbers, open TCP UDP ports, a model or serial numbers of the hardware components, installation, date and language, user groups, a lot of stuff. And all of this is available for all the Windows operating systems, including the server and the client OS. All of that is available for the Linux distributions, Oracle, Red Hat, CentOS, Ubuntu, Debian, SUSE, OpenSUSE, Fedora, and one more, I forgot the name. Then macOS, of course, virtual machines with the supporting operating systems, which I just mentioned. And part of it is also available for mobile devices, Android and iOS, and network devices. In this case, it's more on the device identification, port scanning, and vulnerability assessment. So that part of the information is available for the mobile and network devices. All of this huge amount of information is oriented in a very nice dashboard. We are also at the site working on the new dashboard, which will be implemented in the GFI App Manager. And this dashboard is just super easy to navigate. You can click on what you're interested in. If it's a patch, missing patches on a single computer or all the computers, software, etc., has a very nice graphical representation, and you are able to export seamlessly reports and compliance reports. So now let's go a little bit more technical, but not too much. So as I mentioned with GFI Landguard, this is the amount of information it gathers. The information which is being gathered is always gathered through a process we call a scan. Now, a scan could be conducted in two different ways. There is a server-based scan and agent-based scan. Now, the server-based scan means that, okay, I have a server, I click on the scan button and it scans the computers. It takes a little bit more time, but it scans all the computers. With the agent-based scan is that I have a server, I deploy agents, and I run the scan with use of the agents. The only difference is in the time needed to actually finish the scan. There is no difference from the perspective of gathered information. So it's always about the time, right? If you have 10 computers at your customer, then I will do the server-based scan because 10 computers doesn't matter. You will be done in 1 hour, maybe 1 hour and a half. If you have 100 computers at your customer, I would definitely go with the agent scan, because in that case, you deploy 100 agents, all agents scan their independent computer, and you're done in, let's say, an hour or hour and a half, right? But with a much more larger amount of computers. Now, this is the standard or traditional setup. So again, you have a server, you can choose to run an agent, or you can choose to scan the computer without an agent, or you can use the WAN agent. So that's the traditional server setup, where the server itself is actually many times owned by the customer. So it's deployed at the customer premises. Here is the WAN setup. This is, I would say, also quite traditional. So in many cases, you have the customer. The customer has the server deployed at his premises or somewhere in the cloud. And then he has multiple WAN agents, which are deployed on different geographical locations with home office users, etc. And they are just running the scan independently of their location. So this is the WAN setup. And here is the MSP setup. And I would say there are multiple MSP setups which you can come up. You can include the cloud deployment if you want to, but the typical one, which seems to be quite successful, is that you have a laptop, a stronger laptop, to be really frank, so not some 15-year-old machine, but at least an i7 processor, so some decent laptop with, cost around $1,000 or euros. You come with a laptop to your customer, you plug into the cable or to Wi-Fi, you perform the scan, you perform the audit, you provide the output to the customer saying that, hey, these are the issues, and you walk away. So that is a very successful combination, that you show your face, you show your expertise, you talk to the customer, you actually are there physically doing something, but you deliver a huge value, and that value is recognized by the customer, who then eventually pays for the service. And many times this is like a one-off, or it could be regular, but not regular like every week or every month. Many of our MSP partners are doing this like once a quarter or 2-3 times a year, depending on the customer and depending on the customer need. But either way, from the customer perspective, it's a cheaper option, right? For the SMB, for sure, it's a cheaper option. I have a guy, he's an expert, he logs in, he scans, he fixes all that problem, he provides me the report what was wrong. and I'm happy, I'm satisfied that my network is secured. Then the guy walks away, right? So and it's a one-time payment. SMB doesn't need to pay for an IT administrator who needs to have that expertise, and SMB doesn't need to pay for a product on the annual basis or even on monthly basis. They don't need to renew. They only pay for one audit. That's it. And this is exactly what the GFI Vanguard for MSPs is doing. You are paying for the scan, nothing else. The scan, we can say, helps with the cybersecurity audit. As we seen on the previous slides, it helps to automate certain aspects, right? So you always pay for the scan. So you can have, I don't know, 15, 50 computers, 100 computers, you scan 100 computers, you pay only for one scan, right? Because one scan could scan from one to I don't know how many computers. Now, there is a bit more benefit from the partner perspective, right? The partner will pay for the scan. He can obviously bundle this in some sort of his service offering, but part of that is that he gets reporting for free. He can deliver patch automation for free because it's not charged from our side. We only charge the scan. He can do the audit, as mentioned. He can do the management. He can do the software deployment. So there are multiple other options, multiple other features of the product which could be done, and they are not being charged at all. So do the scan, for example, on Monday, and then you can choose, okay, the customer wants to deploy patches on Friday because people go to weekend. So I will deploy the patches. I will charge the customer more, but I'm not going to be charged from GFI. The patch process is just included, right? You're not charged extra, and you can do the patches many times on next week or whatever if it's a larger infrastructure, but you don't pay for that. You only pay for the scan. So here is an example. So the whole thing is actually done through a different tiers. So the first tier is with maximum 25 nodes. This means that you can scan one computer or 5 computers at the same time, or 20 computers at the same time, or 25, but you always pay for one scan, right? Because the maximum capacity of the scan is 25 nodes. So we don't care if you scan less or if you scan exactly the same amount. We don't care. We only care that the scan was done, because that's for what you're going to be charged. And there are multiple tiers for 50 nodes, 100 nodes, and more and more. And I think we've added even some new tiers, which was actually a part of the feedback coming from Igor. I think, Nebojša, you have been CC'd in that email, so there is no problem into adding more tiers. So as I did mention previously, Vanguard is adding or is generating a lot of information. So I've showed you that slide before. I'm now a little bit going back to the slide because I want to make a different point. For the MSPs, if you are conducting a cybersecurity audit, the cybersecurity audit doesn't need to be the main benefit of it. The actually securing people doesn't need to be the main driver of even having the audit done in the first place. The other driver might be the compliance. And this is exactly where I'm going with the NIS2. So the NIS2, to best of my knowledge, has been announced as a regulation by European Union some time ago. And this year, I think by September or October, it needs to be implemented into the cybersecurity law of the member states. So as I mentioned previously, we don't know how it will be implemented. I don't know how it will be implemented in Slovakia. I don't know how it will be implemented in Czech, in Germany, until it actually gets done. The NIS2 is coming with a set of recommendations, right? So it's telling you that you should have an operational continuity. It's telling you that you should include management and publication of vulnerabilities in your network, which is exactly what GFI Vanguard is doing. It is telling you that you should have a basic cybersecurity hygiene practices, cybersecurity trainings, and these things. So it's telling you about stuff, right? But it's not forcing you. The local law, the local implementation of NIS2 of your country will actually force that. But until it's done, then you don't really know. There is a bit more to it. And one of the other stuff is that there is a regulation in far to east in Australia, which is called Essential 8. The Essential 8 is, again, a regulation with the set 8 aspects, and those 8 aspects are actually enforced completely. So it's no longer like European Union saying that, hey, you know what, it will be very nice if you can implement the vulnerability assessment. The Essential 8 in Australia is telling you that, hey, if you are a company of this size, if you're doing this business, you have to do it. That's it. No discussion. If you don't have it, you pay you pay a fine. Now, why I'm mentioning the Essential 8 for Australia? I really didn't want to confuse you guys in any way, but the thing is that NIS2 will have a new version. It will be called NIS3. It's already in making, based of information which we received from different parties from in the union. So it will happen. So it will happen very likely in the next couple of years, and NIS3 will be exactly having the same attitude and the same behavior as the Essential 8. So it will not wait for the member states to implement in their own way the regulation in their own laws, local laws, but simply it will be European-wide and it will dictate, right? So we don't know what it will dictate yet. Of course, we can have a look on the Essential 8 in Australia to get a hint, because I would personally think that it will not be lower than what the Australians have did. It will only be larger because the cyber criminalism is not going to slow down. And as mentioned few times already, with the AI, it just can't, right? It will be just having a larger pace and more attacks, and even less or more sophisticated will happen. So it will be a logical step for the European Union to actually do something like that. Now, we covered Vanguard, and we've talked about what it actually is able to do, what it's able to gather, what kind of information. But Vanguard is only on the nodes, on the endpoints which are within the network or are away from the network, but with the agent. There is another point, and that point is to actually see what's going on between the nodes. So how does the network look like when it comes to the communication? And that is addressed by GFI Clearview. GFI Clearview is going to tell you exactly what's going on, like what's the bandwidth consumption, what's the traffic usage, which nodes are using what ports, what TCP, UDP ports, what applications are being used, what protocols are being used, what is the pattern in usage. It will identify natively thousands and thousands of applications. It will complement the firewall with this information. And on the side of it, it will actually monitor the network from a totally different perspective as any firewall will actually do. So it will check the network or transaction delays. It will have a look on the packet loss. It will recognize the jitter, and it will put all that information together to actually provide you a summarized list of applications which are not performing at the needed level. So if you have a business application, for example, Zoom, which we are using right now, then Zoom will be evaluated by Clearview, and you'll be exactly able to see which user doesn't have a good experience with Zoom. If that user is a CEO of a company, or I don't know, a sales representative who is making 100 Zoom calls a week, then that's a problem which can impact the business, right? And GFI Clearview will natively actually provide you that information, so you know, and you'll be able to also spot on where the problem is and how to fix it. There are different deployment scenarios how you can actually deploy GFI Clearview. One of it is that it could be deployed at the MSP, assuming that the traffic or the hosted application is also at the MSP, or it could be deployed at the customer premises in the SMB, and in this case, it will monitor only the traffic and the system from the customer perspective. So both of those products, the GFI Clearview and GFI Vanguard, are a good set of products or a good combo to actually help you with cybersecurity audit, or with cybersecurity audit as a service, because they have the needed feature set to automate majority of the tasks which actually should be part of this audit. In case that this was interested to you for one product or another, or just the entire story about the NIS2 and other stuff, then on this QR code, you'll be able to find several materials, documents, which are providing some extra information on the Clearview, extra information on Landguard. Also, I have something about the audit as a service there, information about the NIS2 and how GFI can help with NIS2, which products we can have to help. So yeah, and that being said, just to close my presentation, I hope I still have a few minutes, is that you've seen two different products. Normally, those two different products have different interfaces. And exactly as Maxim said before me, that for MSPs, it's absolutely mandatory to lower the amount of time spent on managing individual products. And instead of manage them individually, they should be managed through a central location. And that essential location from our point of view will be GFI App Manager, which eventually we want to have as an application or a cloud platform for everything. And in this case, I really mean for everything, not only GFI products, the ones that I mentioned, GFI Landguard and GFI Clearview, Carrier Control, Carrier Connect, but also for other products. So GFI Manager has an open SDK, which you can take advantage and implement anything you want. So you can add, I don't know, Sophos if you want to. You can add FortiGate if you want to, an endpoint antivirus if you want to. So it's an open platform to really deliver the centralized location, ease of use to the MSPs. So that is our vision, to deliver innovation, features, and ease of use, and has alerting system where you can easily go through the alerts and create for different customers or different deployments. It has a monitoring portion where you have all the graphs and what's actually happening. The data is being stored, so you can always revisit the previous day or previous month. And on top of that, we have an XDR function, which is called the radar, and it will just take advantage of the rich ability of our products to recognize things, exactly as with Landguard and which I mentioned, or with Clearview, or if you know Carrier Control and Carrier Connect, then you know that those products are also very rich on detecting stuff. And radar will just cross-combine that, recognize anomalies, and react. So that is exactly what this will be once released. So that's all from my side. Thank you for listening. Yeah, I hope that you found something interesting in my slide deck. In case that you have any questions, just feel free to ask. And if I know the answer, then I will definitely provide it.